Hey everybody, it's Brian from Greenfield. In this video, I'm going to share my thoughts on the new Draw Steel playtest packet that was recently released for backers. Draw Steel, if you're not familiar, is the name of the tabletop RPG that MCDM has been designing. I'll start by giving some initial observations, touch briefly on the action economy, and then get into some examples. Now, a few caveats before we do get into it. I am not a tabletop RPG connoisseur. I've played 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and Call of Cthulhu. That's it. Also, I haven't played the adventures in this packet yet. I played the Patron packet from January, but a lot has changed since then. Finally, this is my first YouTube video. I might be terrible at this. Okay, back to the reason I'm recording. I think what MCDM has done here is special. Everything about the game, the action economy, the class design, ancestries and kits, character creation, all contribute to the following observations. First, players have a lot of flexibility to create unique characters. Second, those characters can fulfill any fantasy trope the players have in their head. Third, and most importantly, those characters don't feel suboptimal, and choices made in character creation don't feel wasted or meaningless. Now, I think Draw Steel's success starts with the action economy and how MCDM designed it. Move, maneuver, and action. That's it. Think of maneuvers as a bonus action from D&D. The other two are self-explanatory. Standard maneuvers available to everyone include things like grab a creature, escape a grab, hide, or push a creature. Meanwhile, standard actions, also available to everyone, include things like healing yourself or an adjacent ally. I recently ran a combat encounter for my D&D group. This combat was meant to be a huge epic set piece with special events firing twice a round that would change the locations of the players, give the players different ways of interacting with the encounter, or create additional threats to increase the tension. As part of the monster's attacks, it could grapple players with tentacles. This being D&D, on the player's turn, they could use their action to either try to escape the grapple or attack the monster if they were within range. Either or. Some of the events I created included ways of breaking any cycle where a player has gotten stuck trying to escape the grapple. Despite that, I still had one or two players spend 2 or 3 turns in a row trying to escape. Now, I loved designing that encounter, and my players said they had a blast. I think I believe them after almost 5 years of playing together, but all I thought about afterwards were those rounds when some of them, hey Corey, spent doing basically nothing. Escaping a grab as a maneuver would keep the tension because the players will have other things they wanted to do with that maneuver, but it does so without negating the player's turn because they still have their action. I know I've made comparisons to 5th edition D&D, and I fully acknowledge that these are different games. I'm not interested in a tit-for-tat accounting. But D&D is the 800-pound gorilla, and most potential players will be making this comparison, implicitly or explicitly. My players and I are all working parents who make time for game night every Thursday, but we only have time for one game night a week. Okay, let's get into some examples. One of my favorite ancestries in the packet is the Dragon Knight, and among Dragon Knight's potential features is something called Draconian Rush. As a maneuver, the Dragon Knight can fly up to their movement speed. Standard movement speed is 5 squares. So, you could move 5 squares, Draconian Rush 5 more squares, and then use your action to charge, moving an additional 5 squares and making a basic attack at the end of that charge. 15 squares of movement total, every turn if you wanted. Add in the martial arts kit, which increases speed by 3, and you're moving 24 squares, or 120 feet in D&D terms. I haven't even mentioned a class yet. This is just Ancestry and a kit. Make this character a Fury, and she's a raging warrior sprinting around the battlefield, pummeling everything. Make her a Shadow, and she's a Blur, a phantom, darting between enemies and picking off the weakest, most vulnerable targets. Now, charging and making a basic attack usually are not the most powerful option. The rules make that point a couple of times, but it's possible, easy, and evocative. That's optimizing for a specific playstyle. Let's look at an example of a more rounded character. The Woad elf ancestry has 3 features. 1, their base speed is 6 instead of 5. 2, otherworldly grace. They gain an edge on resistance rolls and on tests using certain skills. 3, Woad elf glamour. They gain an edge on agility tests to hide and sneak, and enemy tests made to find them while hiding take a bane, a debuff. Getting an edge on resistance rolls appears universally useful. They'll come up often, certainly many times in a campaign, and maybe many times in a single encounter. The third feature, glamour, seems to lend itself to a rogue style of play, until you remember 2 things. First, hiding is a maneuver, not an action. Second, your chance of successfully hiding is not negatively impacted by things like heavy armor. Suddenly, hiding behind becomes something every character can do, especially any Woad Elf character. Let's say I'm a Woad Elf tactician. My agility is 0, no modifiers. But if I have an edge to hiding and sneaking, without that edge, the probability of rolling 17 or higher on the power roll is 10%. With the edge, which adds 2 to the roll, that probability doubles to 20%. With an edge, the probability of rolling at least 12 is 65%. I work in finance. I would take those odds all day long, unless the fail state was something like instant death. And this makes sense, I think. Take the 1982 Conan the Barbarian film. Conan is obviously a barbarian. There's no argument there. Subotai is an archer or a ranger, and I always viewed Valeria as more of a smart fighter, a tactician. She's clearly the most intelligent of the 3. But they call themselves thieves, and there are 2 major sequences where they sneak into enemy strongholds. Or how about the scene in the 2 Towers when Gimli and Aragorn sneak around the wall to ambush the besieging Uruk-hai? They're not rogues, and they're both wearing armor, but they're sneaky. There is a drawback to sneaking with armor, though. Sneaking halves your movement, and if your base speed is 5, that means you're only inching along 2 squares at a time. Characters with light armor or no armor get a speed bonus, which helps to offset the slower sneak speed. Speaking of dwarves, let's look at a third and final example. Dwarves have a feature that increases their stability by 1, which means it's harder to move them. If an effect moves the target 2 squares, the dwarves only move 1, and so on. Getting moved around is a big part of draw steal. While increasing stability by 1 seems like a small bonus, because it comes up so frequently, that bonus essentially compounds. Even for a character who otherwise doesn't care about stability, the benefit, in other words, the payoff for picking a dwarf, is going to be frequent. This is what I meant at the beginning about choices never feeling wasted. On the other hand, this feature is also additive with other stability bonuses, like the Mountain Kit, which increases stability by 2 for a total of 3. This makes you the immovable object that anchors the center line of your party. Okay, let's bring this back to my original point. An Ancestry's features either contribute to a specific playstyle or provide broadly useful benefits, and the same feature can often accomplish both. The game is designed such that it rewards either approach. This way, players don't feel punished for making choices about their character. Now, my opinion of draw steal isn't totally effusive. For example, the Orc Ancestry feels like it falls short compared to the others, which is unfortunate because their art is phenomenal. But maybe I just need to play an Orc character. Also, back in January, the game felt busy. There was a lot going on, and as a director, it was very difficult to track everything. Finally, I still have a lingering concern about the perceived lack of failure in the game. When I play D&D, I don't get frustrated if all I roll is ones. It's part of the fun. Although I realize that trait isn't shared by everyone or maybe even most people. I think the power roll addresses that, but I can't say that confidently since I haven't played with it yet. All right, if you made it this far, thank you. I didn't expect to be making this video. This channel wasn't supposed to go live until next year. There's no branding, no content, no lighting. Nobody knows who I am. I'm recording this on Zoom. But the more I read this new Draw Steel packet, the more I needed to make this video. I'm not sure where things will go from here, but if you're watching this, thank you. And thank you, MCDM, for making something very special. See ya.